All right, we're going to have a conversation here very quickly about automation. Okay? I'm going to place this context correctly. I met a guy once, Japanese guy. He told me about how he worked at Nissan and he was an engineer, and part of what he did at Nissan is that he worked on the automation for various kinds of product lines. That's what he had done. And at some point he came to a decision in his life that he wanted to change what he was doing. And what he was doing at the time, it's going to drive you crazy because it drove me crazy. What he was doing at the time was being a human test subject for various kinds of pharmaceutical companies that were testing different medications. You see, in Chicago, at the University of Chicago, they had a policy where they would have these clinical trials. And so, if you were a student, or maybe you were somebody that needed a couple extra bucks, they'd have these experiments, and you could go and you signed up and they would pay you some money to participate in these experiments. Sometimes it would be a couple days, sometimes it might be a couple of months. Some people made quite a bit of money. As a matter of fact, when I was in college, quite a few people who were in college would do one of these experiments or one of these studies. It was a big part of how the model at Chicago, the University of Chicago, worked when it came to experimentation and when it came to concepts of human test subject experimentation. Now, I never participated in that, right? Never did any of that. I only ever took one survey, and I told the people it was so reprehensible to just not even contact me again. It was a survey about opinions on organ donation. And it wasn't actually a survey. What I realized it was a program. It was on a computer screen, and you went in and you sat at a little cubicle, and it gave you a series of tests. The problem is, I've read a little bit about those psychologist guys. So it was a psyop, is really what it was. It was a psyop to try to determine how you would respond to understanding that your organs were being harvested during the session. Just so you know. That's the only time I ever engaged in any of the human test subject experimentation at the University of Chicago. But I mentioned this so that you have a little bit of an understanding of the context and the profundity. We're not just dealing with people on the street, human refuse, the kind of people you can cut open and analyze and dissect and think that nobody cares about them. They've just been written off, right? We're talking about you. We're talking about you, and we're talking about whoever it is you think is somebody that has the power to have influence over your life. That's why I want to talk about automation. At some point, I contacted the Naval Criminal Investigative Services with an understanding I had that a specific line of code in the back end of my Gmail account had been encoded to have acts of money laundering and or other kinds of diversions to other electronic accounts, including electronic accounts that went to web pages about studying. Literally, my email, every single email I sent was coded to a crypto option to a web page that had frozen bull semen for sale. And there was another page that had pictures of big black stud bulls. There were three of them on that page, and the understanding was, here's the stud bull. If you have a nice, gentle calf or a nice, gentle lady cow that needs to be serviced, contact us. And the cryptos were in four-digit codes. And when I went through each of the cryptos to see what it referred to, I tried first to identify them with CVE certificate numbers because wanted to see. And I looked up what the actual CVE certificate numbers were that correlated with my class, i.e., the year that I was in programming around alleged mental health treatment, as then how it correlated with those four-digit cryptos. And also another year, the year I was reprogrammed in Texas. And from the year of my class, the references to the alleged cybersecurity functions that they were discussing, that the names, the specific functions, were the kinds of things that people I used to work with would talk about as part of their history. These were people that were alleged to have a disability, a mental disability. And so we would have to go to therapy. And some people probably got to talk about their past life and what their trauma was in therapy. I never did. They never wanted me to talk about my trauma. I was always stabilizing. It wasn't safe at the point in time to talk about my trauma, even though I wanted to. There was never room to talk about my trauma. But when I'm with my friends, right, when I'm with my colleagues, we might share information at lunch or while we're just talking on the job. A little bit about how we got there, who we are. And so there would be things that had happened in our lives or family associations. And somebody had certificates on cyber vulnerabilities that were literally the kinds of stories we would tell each other. And when I cross-referenced and looked at that string, they'd put me in a class with them. They'd given us certificates about our cyber vulnerabilities. But every once in a while, somebody wanted to teach a bitch like me a lesson. So they would ping out to stud service. And then I would get what was supposed to appear to be spam. That would just have some random spam. It didn't make any sense, except it would have some fake, so-called fake account that said school funding, that had back-end coding to crypto links, to child pornography. I'm not just making this up. It literally happened. I literally investigated it. I think it was in the 200s in the line of code. Every goddamn fucking email back encoded with that line of electronic sexual assault. It would be different if I hadn't contacted a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee and told him to check his cybersecurity because he was playing pitch and catch with me when I was trying to contact him via email, right? Now, for a while, about a month, that line of code was gone from my emails. And I didn't get those horrible child porn spams for about a month. Never heard a response from NCIS. But after a month, it started up again. Now I don't have that email. I tried to decommission it, download the email. All the emails got deleted. I don't have that email account anymore. Somebody else has it. And I hear every once in a while that somebody else actually is working profiles connected to that email account. And they're pissed. All I did was email myself most of the time. It was part of my tracking, keeping notes. There's all these electronic accounts connected to my life. They're using them for all kinds of acts of terrorism and other crime. I track it. I can hear it. If I get angry because you're putting violent rape porn that's also very racialized into my unconscious, and then you're constantly subjecting me to scenarios that are completely racialized and intentionally aimed at trying to humiliate me or trying to get me to commit crime, and I send myself an email, I don't give a shit how you feel about it. Are you offended? How offended do you think it is that every single thing in my life has been pre-programmed to a completely racialized context where people are racially encoded to act incompetent or criminal? It's none of my concern if you read my email to myself and it pisses you off. If you think and I said this in an email, if you think you're qualified to do that kind of intelligence, then there's no reason you should get offended or upset or emotional about spying on somebody. If you're a middle-aged white woman and you're spying on somebody that's talking about how pissed off they are that middle-aged white women keep trying to recruit them into illicit distribution of pharmaceuticals, and I'm spying on you and you're saying things about that white bitch that keeps trying to get you to be a racketeero, I have no right to get offended because I don't like being called a white bitch, right? But I hear it all the time. Somebody thinks they have a justification for harassment or civil rights accusation because they're spying on me. They're setting up these racial programming scenarios where I'm supposed to accede to behavioral conditioning, to performing in a submissive role based on a racial cue. And my thing is like, you said your job was this, and you're violating your job, and you're actually acting very racist in so doing, and why are you spying on me? You know what I'm saying? I'm just letting you know. Automation, you need to adjust your automation because these loops keep happening, right? Which will get to the next part.